John Huntsman's first campaign ad telegraphed the message, "I'm going to be the weird guy in the race." That, in fact, is not me on the motorcycle. After that softest of all soft launches online, John Huntsman's in-person campaign launch was a formal speech from Jersey City, New Jersey. A formal speech with a beautiful view of the Statue of Liberty in the background, just like Ronald Reagan did. That will be awesome. Except when John Huntsman did it, his campaign neglected to actually frame the shot so you could see the Statue of Liberty. Instead, it was just John Huntsman, as you see here, his head bisected by a parked tour boat. And for the members of the media who covered the John Huntsman launch with the tour boat, they got these press credentials, which said they were in New York. They were not. They were in New Jersey. And which featured John Huntsman's name spelled wrong. The candidate's campaign handed out press badges that had their own candidate's name misspelled. And when the press tried to follow the candidate from his announcement to his first campaign event in New Hampshire that day, the press were led accidentally to a plane that was actually bound not for New Hampshire, but for Saudi Arabia. So it was a logistically troubled campaign launch day for John Huntsman. But you know what? Whatever. Everybody has their moments. You know, last night we did half of this show without a teleprompter. And when these things happen, you just move on. Or in the case of the John Huntsman campaign, you try to move on, but instead what happens is you just continue with the mishaps and the flubs, and you hope that nobody extrapolates greater political meaning from the fact that these flubs keep happening. Like, remember how the campaign spelled John Huntsman's name wrong on the credentials that first day, and that was super embarrassing? That did not stop the John Huntsman campaign from doing it again on a mailer in the all-important first primary state of New Hampshire. Once again, his own campaign making him John with an H, which is not the way you spell his name. Then a former John Huntsman aide did a tell-all with Politico.com, which resulted in this big 7-page click-through piece on Politico titled "Inside the Drama," describing Huntsman's campaign as disorganized and full of staff tension. According to Politico, this former aide had recently reached out to them to discuss his concerns with the campaign. He initially insisted that he be identified in any story only as a campaign insider. But after reading a Real Clear Politics story that featured unnamed Huntsman officials calling him a disruptive force, this particular aide was infuriated and agreed to go on the record. That sort of tell-all, backstabby, catty dirt dishing usually happens once the campaign is over. That's usually the way campaign people treat each other after the campaign lost, and it's done. So this was a very bad sign for the campaign for John Huntsman for president, that Huntsman staffers and former staffers are already yelling at each other on the internet while the campaign is still going on. Then there was that time the Huntsman campaign promised a major announcement. It turned out to be the endorsement of Jeb Bush. But it wasn't that Jeb Bush that you're thinking of. It was this Jeb Bush Jr., who is a person you have never heard of. And then there's John Huntsman debating. It's not that it's that bad necessarily. I think Mr. Huntsman did okay at the NBC debate earlier this month. Certainly no gaffes, except for the fact that he said nothing that got noticed at all. A few days later in the debate on CNN in Tampa, Florida, Mr. Huntsman went back to the "I'm the weird motorcycle guy, notice me" strategy.
I want to go down and get your thoughts on something you would bring to the White House if you were the next president of the United States.
My wife's going to kill me for saying this, but I would bring as a 40-year motorcycle rider, I would bring my Harley Davidson and my motocross bike.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 8 Republican presidential candidates.
Remember when I was the cool, weird motorcycle guy, even though that wasn't really me on the motorcycle in my ad? Remember when I was that guy, not the guy whose campaign was spelling his name wrong and having their infighting on Politico and I had the boat on my head? Please remember me as the motorcycle guy. Please.
Governor Huntsman, when it comes to reforming Social Security, is anything from your perspective off the table?
I don't think anything should be off the table, except maybe some of the drama that's playing out here on this floor today. I mean, to hear these two go at it over here, it's almost incredible. You've got Governor Romney, who called it a fraud in his book, No Apology. I don't know if that was written by Kurt Cobain or not.
Is that the right audience for that? John Huntsman trying very hard, but emphatically failing to lock up the influential Kurt Cobain fan base vote in the Republican presidential primary in Tampa. Maybe, I don't know. What John Huntsman needs to be doing right now is becoming a credible third way. Someone who is not in the super conservative Rick Perry, Michelle Bachmann camp, but who is also not in the Romney-esque Mitt Romney camp. But what he is doing instead, I think, can fairly be diagnosed, even if you like Jon Huntsman, I think what's happening to his campaign right now could fairly be diagnosed as a failure to thrive. Plus, not to mention, he did have the opportunity to use the Huntsman theme song from that cartoon, which we offered him, and he has never used it.
Lead the huntsman into action is his cry.
If you had the option to use that and you were polling like he's polling, wouldn't you use that? Given his polling, a theme song or something is in fact what Jon Huntsman needs. This week, in the land of Jon Huntsman polling, what looked like a mistake actually wasn't. The folks at Gallup released what they headline this as their positive intensity scores for the Republican presidential contenders. Positive intensity scores. Rick Perry, say, at 24, Mitt Romney at 16, Michelle Bachmann at 10, Ron Paul at 7, Jon Huntsman at -1. A negative number in positive intensity surveying. How do you have a negative number on something that is called your positive intensity? Earlier last month, things were looking much better for Governor Huntsman when he pulled all the way up at +1. But hey, it is above 0. Jon Huntsman's national polling since he started his campaign has really been solid in the sense that it has been stable. In the Washington Post ABC poll taken in June, the month Mr. Huntsman officially announced his candidacy, he was pulling in a solid 1%. In the same poll this month, he's still at 1%. Last Friday, 7 days ago, the Huntsman campaign decided it was time to do things a little differently, time to reallocate some resources. The campaign announcing it was shifting staff members from Huntsman's campaign headquarters in Florida to instead Huntsman campaign headquarters in New Hampshire. The campaign calling the shift in strategy critical in our efforts in New Hampshire and across the country. For Jon Huntsman, winning the nomination now means winning in New Hampshire. That is necessary but not sufficient, but it really is necessary. And presumably the campaign has some reason to believe that he has the potential to do well in New Hampshire, or they wouldn't be talking up its importance. But when you look at how Huntsman is actually doing in gotta win New Hampshire to win everywhere, you can see that Governor Huntsman's big 4% in the WMUR poll in May, there's one very important thing about that 4%. That was before Jon Huntsman launched his campaign. By July, once he was in the race, he was down to 2%. So here is an open question. Why is Jon Huntsman still in this race? Maybe there are some internal polls that indicate Governor Huntsman will have a huge bump in the next wave of data. I mean, Tim Pawlenty didn't even wait for the Iowa caucuses before he dropped out with a thud. But Jon Huntsman, Mr. 1%, he is still plugging away. Why is that? Why is he not quitting? Why is he still being taken seriously? Why is he still getting into the debates? It's a mystery. But today especially, there is a new, even bigger mystery about this. Why are Republican establishment figures, surprising Republican establishment figures, still signing up with Jon Huntsman now? Last week, we learned that a top Rick Perry donor is becoming Jon Huntsman's campaign chair. And today, from the Jon Huntsman campaign in New Hampshire, this happened.
I'm delighted today to be here with Governor Tom Ridge. He's a war hero. He's a prosecutor. He's a businessman. He's a former congressman. Twice elected governor of Pennsylvania, our nation's first ever Secretary of Homeland Security. And today I am honored and privileged to be able to call Tom not only a friend, but a supporter.
Tom Ridge. Tom Ridge is, in fact, all of those things. War hero, prosecutor, former Pennsylvania governor, George W. Bush's first Homeland Security Secretary, real serious, heavy-hitting, no-joke, big-deal Republican Party establishment-type Republican with national name recognition and considered for the vice presidency and all of that, and he is endorsing Jon Huntsman today, endorsing Mr. 1%. We asked Mr. Ridge to come on the show tonight. He was very nice, but he said he was not able to be here. But I got to tell you, I am desperate to know, why is this happening? What is going on here? What is the secret that explains why Mr. 1% is still in the debates, still being taken seriously, still in the race at all, and still now picking up new endorsements and new Rick Perry donors to come work on his campaign? Joining us now is Alex Wagner, MSNBC political analyst. Alex, it's good to have you here. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Is there a secret long game here that explains why John Huntsman is in the race?
Would that we all knew. I think there is a real desire on the part of the GOP establishment to have someone who is not Mitt Romney and not Rick Perry in the race, and also not Michelle Bachmann and not Herman Cain and not Ron Paul. So that de facto candidate is.
No, sorry.
I forgot him. It's sort of like high school. You have the football, you have the head of the captain of the football team, you have the president of the student council, that would be Mitt Romney, and then you have the weird guy in shop class who gets like nosebleeds at weird times, and that would be John Huntsman. He keeps staying in there because I think he believes he can get to February, he can get to New Hampshire, and he's going to show everybody what he has, as you said. That, I think, is driven in large part by John Weaver, his chief strategist who ran McCain's campaign, and McCain was in sort of similar predicament at some point in 2008, and then, of course, ended up being the GOP candidate.
Is there a problem in the Mitt Romney candidacy, though, that is solved by John Huntsman?
Well, no, I mean, in that way, and I should go back to my high school illusion, it's not, he's almost, if Mitt Romney is the president of the student council, John Huntsman's sort of like the annoying sergeant at arms. I mean, there is, look, John Huntsman has some serious bona fides in terms of executive experience, job creation, his foreign policy, et cetera, if you're looking at this field. Mitt Romney has some version of those. It's not like the Romney-Perry dynamic, which I liken to a jigsaw puzzle. You know, one is concave, one is convex. There's not the same sort of call and response with Romney and Huntsman. So in that way, I think it's very difficult for Huntsman to draw a line saying, look, I'm this much more compelling than Mitt Romney. And then you couple that with an abysmal performance on Monday at the debates that literally gave rise, I think, across the Twitterverse to hashtag groan. It was like, please stop talking. You'll get beyond 1% if you stop making the bad jokes. Please do yourself a favor.
But I think your point about Weaver being his campaign strategist and the comparison to what seemed like a lost cause John McCain campaign is apt. But in that case, isn't it likely that the strategy for his campaign depended on him just being better at this by now? I mean, making some sort of showing in the debates so far.
Everybody is waiting for that better than this time to arrive. And that 1% might be John Huntsman's family that's getting called in these polls. And I think, look, there is a real desire, I think, on the part of the GOP establishment and even the Tea Party base to have a candidate. They want to lock it down. They want to put a ring on it. And February is that's several months from now. And I think this goose may be cooked before then.
John Huntsman, if you would like to come on this show and tell me that I am full of it and I need to give you a break because you are staying in this because you have a clear path to win it, I will give you all the time that they will allow me to control here at MSNBC to make your case. You will have a good time. It will be fun. It will not be hostile. It will be fair. Come on. My best pitch. Alex Wagner, MSNBC political analyst. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rachel.
Do you think the pitch is going to work?
Yes. Keep mentioning Beefheart. Everyone loves Captain Beefheart.
All right. Excellent. We will be right back. Beefheart.